are going to make plays to each other.
The lob for Zion, the trailer, and the one-handed flush. He has been an unstoppable force tonight. Here comes LaMelo Ball with his hair on fire. Wow! A windmill!
Keep digging, man. It's coming.
Paul George has beat the buzzer a few times. Oh, he does it again!
Luka finds Porzingis to cut it a flush. Oh, DeMar DeRozan.
We got to make it harder for them down there.
Sometimes you dribble the ball, sometimes it dribbles you.
I don't have a hobby. I just play basketball. That's all I do, so I got to find a hobby. So I decided to take some pictures after the game.
Woo! I don't need any afternoon coffee after that. That was awesome. Welcome to The Jump. I am Rachel Nichols alongside NBA champion Matt Barnes and New York Times bestselling author Brian Windhorst. We have a jam-packed show for you guys today. First round of All-Star voting just dropped. We will show you the results shortly. Also coming up, Bulls star Zach LaVine joins The Jump to discuss being the face of the franchise, and also his name being rumored on the trading block as he hopes to get an All-Star invite. Plus, we're going to talk about a new book from Lakers vet Jared Dudley, adding even more fuel to their rivalry with the Clippers. Should the Lake Show be more or less worried about the Clippers this season than they were last season? Stick around for that discussion. First, though, you could be forgiven if when looking over scores from last night, you saw that the Bucks blew out the Pacers by 20 and thought, same old, same old. After all, Milwaukee has spent much of the past couple regular seasons blowing teams out. And then once the Bucks get to the playoffs, not great, Bob. Once benches get shorter, teams face each other over and over, opponents have figured out how to exploit Milwaukee's predictability, its rigidity, the small but stubborn holes in Giannis's game. It's all gotten to the point that really, no matter what the Bucks achieved this regular season, it was going to strike fear in the hearts of exactly no one, which in turn led to an interesting question for the Milwaukee Brain Trust. Do you spend these 72 games trying to win each one, above all else, chase the best record in the league again and the top seed that goes with it? Or this time around, do you spend the regular season instead experimenting, practicing, expanding, even if sometimes it gets ugly? Well, we're nearly a third of the way through, and it's been clear the Bucks have picked the latter path. They've swapped out personnel. They've toyed with different ways to use Giannis, leaning into him as a screener and a passer. They've switched on defense. No, really, we have film of it. And sometimes it has been, in fact, ugly. Early in the season, the Bucks got clocked by the Knicks. They lost to the Heat without Jimmy Butler. Giannis has struggled at the free throw line, too. Really struggled with the worst percentages of his career. But that is the thing about change. It is not supposed to be easy or pretty. And when you finally start to see all the little experiments paying off, it is all the more satisfying, which is why last night's win felt like so much fun to Milwaukee. Giannis in particular was a stud, and it wasn't because he dropped 40, because he didn't. Instead, Giannis had just 21 points, but they came with razor efficiency as he went 7 for 8 from the field, and 7 for 8 from the line. He also had 14 rebounds, 10 assists that weren't all just dishes from the paint out to the three-point line, but real playmaking in the half court. Check out this early in the second half. Giannis down low, could have tried to force his way through even after Miles Turner, who leads the league in shot blocking, by the way, came over to help. Instead, though, you see that he found a cutting Brook Lopez streaking to the basket for 2 points. Here was Giannis afterward, describing his mindset.
It's a new thing. Probably last year and the year before and the year before that, go to the game. I'm just too stubborn, to not be at my best every single night, and I try to go through guys, 3 guys are guarding me. I still try to get in the paint, I know all that. And I think this is just a step forward.
This isn't the way Giannis has often played previously, but it is likely the way he needs to at least be able to play more often for the Bucks to be the kind of multi-dimensional threat that goes far in the postseason. And Giannis's willingness to embrace that change is impressive. For someone who is famously competitive, It can be hard to give up even an inch in the short term for the possibility of a mile in the long term. But he has buckled down and done it. And last night he got to enjoy a little bit of the payoff as the Bucks went up by as many as 40, yes, 40 in the second half. Once Bud pulled him for the night, Giannis grabbed one of the team photographer's cameras and started using it, which, I mean, if you're the Pacers, you probably feel some sort of way about that. But the Bucks players loved it. The team released some of the pictures afterward, and you know what? These are actually pretty great. Later, Giannis joked he wanted to take some pictures that finally made his brother Thanasis look good. But honestly, it was the bigger picture that he and his team spent last night chasing. Yeah, the Bucks scored another blowout last night, but it was not in the same old way. And maybe that is going to really matter down the road when it counts. So, Matt, where do you see the Bucks in this new look Eastern Conference, especially if they are willing to make some of these changes on both sides of the ball?
I see Milwaukee as the third or fourth best team in the East. Records aside, I feel like the Nets are going to probably win the East. I like the Sixers in Boston. And Milwaukee is notorious for being great in the regular season, and then they have their playoff problems. If this could be a three-headed monster between Holiday, Middleton, and Giannis, all around 20-plus points a game in the playoffs, I think that may be a recipe for success. But outside of that, you know, he's the two-time MVP. And like you said, in playoff time, you have enough time to study, make adjustments, and teams have found holes and ways to stop him on the offensive end that have had them early exits the last few seasons.
You know, and this is so interesting that Matt describes it this way, Rachel, because over the last 3 years, as I've sought opinions on the Bucks, their numbers have always been fantastic, and the players have not been afraid of them. And here's Matt Barnes, a player, saying, yeah, they look good, but I'm not afraid of them. And that's not going to change until Giannis goes and grabs the series that maybe they shouldn't have and pulls it away, like we've seen the greats do over the years. And that's really what it's going to come down to. You know, I'm going to give the Bucks a lot of latitude here. You made a bunch of great points talking about how they're making experimental changes. They also revamped their entire bench and made a huge change to their starting lineup in trading for Jrue Holiday. And because of that, I'm not really going to seriously evaluate them and their record until we get into the latter stages of the season. I will say that some of their bench moves that I wasn't really excited about have looked okay, including Bobby Portis, who's been playing great recently.
So what do you think, Brian, is the biggest question mark left for the Bucks this year, either from the front office or the coaching staff in terms of tinkering before the trade deadline?
Well, I'm always thinking about what do you do when you need a couple of baskets in the last 5 minutes of the game. And so right now the Bucks have the number 3 offense in the league. They're actually far back in the defensive standings. They're usually at the top. They're sort of in the middle of the pack in defense. So you say, wow, number 3 offense in the league, that's beastie. That's going to really get it done. And then you pull up the clutch stats, which is, you know, when you see and identify what a team can do in a tight playoff game, and they slide all the way to 16th. And that's what I worry about. And maybe Jrue Holiday, who was great in the playoffs a couple years ago with the Pelicans, maybe he was a difference maker there. But they're 1-3 in games decided by 5 points or less. Small sample size, but that's what's going to be the difference for this team, and that's where we're going to eventually figure out who they are.
Yeah, that's my question, too, is who do they go to down the stretch in a playoff game, last 2 minutes when they need a bucket? It hasn't been able to be Giannis yet. Can it be Holiday? It's been Middleton at some point. But they need to have that figure identified. And to me, until we get to the playoffs with this team and see if Holiday can be that or Middleton can be that or if Giannis is going to be that, people don't fear the deer.
Yeah, well, right now they are number 2 in the Eastern Conference standings. But as Matt points out, the regular season standings have not meant much or as much for this team in recent years, especially in the bubble. So we will see what they do with this. All right, coming up on this show, should the Lakers be more or less worried about the Clippers after things went down last season for both teams? What about this season? More or less worried? Stick around to find out what Matt and Brian think. First, though, time for our break. Watch this. Goes behind the back here to Miles Bridges, who windmills at home. Brian, someone on Twitter called this duo Airbnb. I'm supposed to ask you if you're a fan of that nickname, but since the correct answer is yes, how do you feel about that nickname?
I got to tell you, Eric Collins, the play-by-play guy of the Charlotte Hornets, had one of the great regular season calls on this play you're ever going to hear. I'm not even going to try to imitate it. We had it in our open, but go find it.
Yep.
And compliments to him. It was awesome. So that was the best part of it to me.
Airbnb, Matt?
I think the name is very unique, but outside of the name, these two are special, and I think we're witnessing something that's going to be fun to watch for years to come.
Really fun team. Again, the Jump's League Pass Team of the Year, the Charlotte Hornets. All right, Miss Honor, staying in Charlotte, jump ball between LaMelo and Shake Milton. Ball hoists himself up off of Milton to try and steal the jump. Creative or bad sportsmanship, Matt?
If you ain't cheat, you ain't trying. Obviously he wanted to get the little upper hand, and I'm not even mad at that.
Yeah, but he's like 2 or 3 inches taller than Shake Milton. This is questionable. And somebody tried this on you, Matt Barnes. I bet you would have had a different opinion mid-game. I'll just leave it at that.
There's no question. Yeah. He would have caught an elbow at some point, but.
But this is the more mature Matt Barnes. Matt said the other day he regrets some of his fines, so he's just trying to do it with that eye. Exactly, because he's counting the money. All right, make box office Zion's skill set on full display against the Suns, the handles, the shooting, and of course, the dunking, Brian. He was 12 for 14, a plus 37 in 32 minutes. What impressed you most here?
Well, he actually played his best defensive game of the year, but I know nobody wants to talk about defense. J.J. Redick had one of the greatest quotes ever about Zion this year. He said, everybody wants to take 15 layups a game with their dominant hand. Just nobody can do it except for Zion. And you know what? He is right. He's one of the greatest paint scorers I've ever seen in my life. And he keeps getting the baskets he can make, and he keeps scoring in that paint. It's amazing.
If you guys remember back in the day, people used to say all Shaq can do was dunk, but no one can stop it. You know what I mean? So Zion is in attack mode constantly. And Rachel, you brought out a great point. Plus 37 to the casuals. That may not seem like a lot, but coaches love that kind of stuff. And, they base game plans around plus minus. So he was great last night, and I love his development.
Absolutely. All right, guys, miss settling. DeMar DeRozan's strong season continuing. Packed it in there, right? Look at him. Oh. Is DeMar's dunk resume underrated here? We're going to show a few clips.
I definitely think
he's so angry.
I
don't see him as an angry
bounce.
guy.
Matt, do you see that?
He's got this anger in there that we don't see until he dunks.
He catches a lot of people, and I think because he's so mild-mannered, it surprises people. But, DeMar's been dunking on people since I've been watching him at SC.
Amen. LA guy. And, we'll use that as a transition. Why not? The rivalry between the Lakers and Clippers here in Los Angeles is starting to heat up. You see what I did there? This time, due to comments from Lakers forward Jared Dudley. He has an ebook he released this week entitled Inside the NBA Bubble, a Championship Season Under Quarantine. And in the book, Dudley, given a little inside scoop on what the Lakers went through, he revealed his team was primed for the, quote, Battle of LA because of Paul George. Dudley writes that PG was, quote, disrespectful in his comments about the Lakers, which he says motivate them. Here is the excerpt from the book. Quote, we hear some of these guys talking about how they're the team to beat in LA. It's fine if Kawhi says stuff like that, Jared Dudley writes. He is defending a championship. We don't trip if someone like Patrick Beverley is talking trash. That's how he feeds his family. We get it. We respect the hustle. But we think it is disrespectful for Paul George, who hasn't won, to put himself on the level of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. This motivates us. Now, Paul George was asked about it last night after the Clippers win, and he said, quote, God bless you, Jared Dudley. I don't know what it is. Dudes love throwing my name in stuff, said Paul George. He said, but God bless you, Jared. So, Matt, as this rivalry heats up, do you think the Lakers should be more or less worried about the Clippers than they were last season? Because from Jared's book, it feels like they were definitely on their mind.
Rachel, to be honest with you, I don't think either of these teams worry about each other. I think they're both playing well right now. And the matchup we all want to see as fans is them in the Western Conference Finals, hopefully. But I don't really think they fear. I mean, being a former player, I know we didn't fear anyone. We respected everyone. We couldn't wait to play certain teams more than others. But I don't think they worry about each other, either team.
Yeah, the following is the list of things that the Lakers are worried about. The list is over.
That's it.
And
I do think present your list.
There was a time. There was a time last year. The Clippers won the first couple of meetings.
Yeah.
They got him on Christmas Day. They got him on opening night. There was a time where the Clippers kind of did have the upper hand, but the Lakers played so well in the bubble last year. And the thing that the Lakers have that nobody else does, they have the extra gear. And the extra gear wears number 23. And when you've got him and he's healthy and playing well, I just think they're going to take a higher ground. And, I do think it's interesting. I love Jared Dudley, and I wish it's a 42-page book. I wish he wrote 84 pages or 168 pages because I love this kind of stuff and this kind of insight. I do think it's interesting that he gave Patrick Beverley a pass. Because most people, Les Beverly is their number one agitator. Certainly Dame Lillard and the Blazers feel that way. So I just got a kick out of that he gave Bev a pass because Bev, typically runs his mouth a lot more. I'm not so sure everybody in the Lakers feels that way. But you know what? This has been a really interesting 12 months for Paul George, and he's either going to have a triumphant finish where he dances on everybody, or this is going to get worse before it gets better.
Well, Matt, you've had Paul George
He's on the mission.
On all the smoke. We've talked about the fact that his mindset has shifted here. What do you think, Matt, of Jared Dudley calling him out in an ebook like this, and then PG's response?
God bless Jared Dudley. Now that's my guy. Jared is a great talker, great teammate. I'm sure he's one of the most favorite Lakers on the team. I know the guys in the locker room love him. PG is on a mission.
Fun for
he
us
said
in the
that
media.
he's been showing that. Right. But back to what I said. PG is on a mission. He's been saying it. He's been backing up his play. But similar to the Bucks, until we get in the playoffs with Paul and the Clippers, similar to the Bucks, until they do something in the playoffs, he's going to continue to be spoken about, unfortunately.
Yeah, well, I will say that both of those guys, maybe they're on a collision course in the Western Conference Finals. We will see, as Brian said. It is fun for us in the media to talk to Jared because he is so colorful, great insight. The book is really fun. There's a lot in there, even though it is, as you say, Brian, not as long as maybe we would like, but there is a lot of good little nuggets in there. If you're a Lakers fan, definitely worth checking out. And I guess Paul George now has read it too. And to my mind, I agree with you, Matt, came up with the perfect response in his presser last night. All right, coming up, guys, Brian Windhorst is going to fill us in on the latest plans for the All-Star game. But that is just one stop in the next segment as we follow Brian around the country in another round of Where in the World is Windy? It's just a fun game. Stick around. You're going to like it. Scoring 26 points, dishing out 11 assists. De'Aaron Fox would asked if he would be willing to participate in this year's All-Star game, which is on track, expected, not official yet, to take place in Atlanta on March 7th. Here is his response.
If I'm going to be brutally honest, I think it's stupid. If we have to wear masks and do all of this for a regular game, then what's the point of bringing the All-Star game back? But obviously, money makes the world go round, so it is what it is. But, I'm not really worried about it. If I'm voted, so be it. If I'm not, I don't.
Would you play in it?
You get fined if you're supposed to be in it and you're not hurt and you decide not to play. That's a hefty fine. So hell yeah, I would play in it.
There you go. Today, the league released the first round of All-Star voting results. Out east, KD, Giannis, and Embiid lead all front court players. Beal, Kyrie, and Harden lead all backcourt players in that order. And in the West, LeBron, Jokic, and Kawhi leading the way for the front court. Steph, Luka, and Dame, the top three in that order among the West guards. All right, we will get back to the rosters and the voting and all of that in a minute. But with that, it is time for another edition of Where in the World is Brian Windhorst? That is a very severe-looking photo, Brian. Where are you coming to us from?
The home of the finest lemon pepper wings in the NBA, Rachel, Atlanta, Georgia, and the home of the soon-to-be-announced March 7th All-Star Game. Now, look, I know, and certainly De'Aaron Fox articulated this, this seems like a risk and something that may be borderline. But I'm going to tell you that in talking to teams out there, they're more worried about the guys who don't go to the All-Star game than the guys who do come here to Atlanta, because those guys are going to be going to Mexico, maybe to other beach destinations where they may not be as secure as the folks who are going to be in Atlanta for this. And look, I know that this is a risk, but it's a television product and it's a money thing, and there might even be something along the lines of a slam dunk contest and a three-point contest. Not the traditional All-Star Saturday night, but we may see some ancillary things as well when it gets announced likely in the next few hours.
And I agree with Brian, too. Obviously, when the NBA wants to do something, they get it done. And I can guarantee without even going or knowing, these guys are going to be on lockdown. It's going to be really strict. So it may not be possibly as fun as an All-Star game normally is. but, the NBA wants to have it. And you got to respect each player's in situations like this, similar to the bubble situation. Guys are putting their health and their family, obviously, concerns at the forefront. But I trust the NBA that if they're going to make this happen, that it's going to be as safe as it possibly can.
Yeah, I don't worry that these guys will be at risk. And certainly, Brian, the point that if the players who are not at the All-Star game go and really break some of the protocol and go mix with a bunch of people that are not just their immediate family members and go to and fro, that is more of a risk. The only reason the All-Star game is so much more of a question is you are mixing guys from 20 or so different teams, right? So if there is one person that could go and sort of go through the whole league. But the hope is that doesn't happen, right? They're going to be very careful. And look, all fingers crossed. Maybe it's going to be fantastic. I love All-Star every year. I hope they use the Elon scoring ending that they used last year. Seeing all those guys together will certainly give everyone that feeling of just sort of fun and what the NBA is about. I do have to ask, Matt, if you are a player and you were sent to the All-Star game in Atlanta and you were told you had to spend the entire weekend just in your hotel room without being allowed to leave except to go to practice or the court, how tempting will it be for any of these guys to, well, not sample Atlanta?
That's
I'm
tough.
just going to put it. I'm just going to put it that way, Matt.
That's tough. I mean, the fact that it's Atlanta on top of that,
yeah.
And Atlanta acts like COVID doesn't exist. They've never shut down. Everything has continued to go. Steven Jackson lives out there. We talk constantly about how just Atlanta has been a free-for-all. So it's going to be a tough situation. Like I said, normally you let your hair down, you have a good time at events on and off the court during All-Star. This is just going to be at All-Star. But obviously I think guys that aren't going to All-Star are going to be at more at a risk because they've kind of been contained to these certain restrictions and they have 5 or 6 days off and there's no telling what they're going to do and where they're going to go.
I'm very interested to hear what the rules are going to be for the players who are not going to Atlanta, right? Are they allowed to go to Mexico? Like, are they allowed to, right, the rules?
Rules.
And then also the rules for the guys in Atlanta. Do they have to stay in their hotel? Are they allowed to have guests? Who are the guests? Anyway, we'll discuss all that later. We will also discuss the All-Star voting later in the show because there's really interesting names and numbers going on there. Let's move on, Brian. Where in the world are you now?
Las Vegas, Nevada, where
look at that.
A player or two might come during their All-Star break if they don't go to Atlanta. The strange thing about this summer, Rachel, is there's going to be two things happening at the exact same time, which is preparation for the Olympics and the NBA Finals. And so it's already becoming an issue because the Tokyo Olympics look like they're going to happen. And how do you do both if you're USA Basketball? So USA Basketball is planning on creating a bubble. That's exactly, I'm sure everybody wants to hear, another bubble for not only members of Team USA, but also the teams from Australia, Spain, and maybe even Argentina. They're going to be represented by a bunch of NBA players as well. They want to have it here in Las Vegas where they can practice and play games against each other before safely, hopefully COVID-free and with vaccines is the idea, fly to Tokyo and compete in the Olympics. The crazy thing, guys, is that the Team USA's first game in the Olympics is scheduled for 3 days after a possible Game 7 of the NBA Finals. So Jerry Colangelo and USA Basketball want to be able to ask the Olympic Committee for them to change their rosters in the middle of the Olympics so that somebody who potentially could have played in the finals or the conference finals who gotten some rest can come over and join the team. Typically, it's a couple of weeks before you have to set your roster, but everything is different. I don't know if this is going to get approved, but that's their plan, and it's going to be based in the run-up here in Las Vegas.
Well, that's really interesting because if they could change the roster halfway through and, the qualifying games, the original round-robin games aren't as hard for Team USA to win, that would be interesting, Matt. Do you think it's realistic to expect NBA players, especially on Team USA, to participate in these Olympic Games? Talk about the dates there. I mean, it's crazy.
I think so. I think so. Although the schedule's compact, this is just, we're in different times now. So we're in trial and error and trying to make things go on the fly. But if anything, what I would want to see is really them kind of transition right to it. Because if they took a few weeks off or 3 or 4 weeks off after the finals and you kind of shut your body down, then you try to get your engine restarted, it might be a problem. So, I don't expect guys like LeBron, if he's going to play probably early in the games. But I think at some point when it starts getting more serious, he'll play. But like I said, they're doing something on the fly. This is the Olympics. This is what all the guys are waiting for. So I'm sure we'll have a stacked roster.
Will be very interesting, and especially also players who are not Americans who are playing for their country is so much of a rite of passage of their basketball experience, what they're going to want to do as well. All right, let's move on, Brian. I feel like maybe you're in a place very dear and special to me. Is that possible?
Yes, I am. You've been to, I believe, our nation's capital once or twice, Rachel.
Yes.
I think you stood right here at the Lincoln Memorial, probably on a high school field trip.
Yep.
Or two.
Yep.
And last night, the team that calls Washington home, the Wizards, got one of the biggest wins of the season when they went down to Miami, playing a very healthy Miami Heat team. They didn't get in until 4 a.m. on their travel, had to get up for COVID testing like 4 or 5 hours later and stun the healthy Heat. And so 2 big wins in the last week for the Wizards has calmed down any rumblings around Bradley Beal. Let me just say that in talking to people in Beal's camp, in talking to executives out there, even though it looked really bad, and it still may again look bad when the Wizards struggle a little bit, there's never been any wavering that Bradley Beal was on the market. Now, whether or not executives believe that will stay that way through March 25th is a different question, but the Wizards are playing better, and Bradley Beal was never on the market if you listen to what everybody is saying.
All right, well, Matt, how much should we read into, watch this, all the smoke around Beal and the Wizards?
I mean, winning helps everything. But to be honest with you, they're 3-7 in their last 10 games. But the one thing I respect about Bradley Beal is, regardless of what's going on, he's going to say and do the right thing on and off the court. Now, whether he's really on the trade market or not, I guess we won't know until that trade line comes and goes. But the one thing about Bradley Beal is he's a consummate pro. He's going to give his absolute most effort. And he's someone you definitely want in your locker room.
Well, Brian, look, we always point out to fans and viewers watching this show, this isn't us picking at Bradley Beal. Is he going to stay or go? This is because you legitimately, Brian, talked to dozens of front office people who are asking you, in a lot of cases, how available is Beal? What's going on with Beal? We're talking about Beal. If the hubbub around Beal is simmering down, who is the next person that you hear front office is talking about?
Well, Ben Simmons was offered for James Harden, so there's a question about whether if a star becomes available, whether he could be. And another guy that executives are watching out there because they're not sure of his future with the organization is Zach LaVine. Now, I would tell you that
Order up a win, we gon' take it all away. And tell ESPN, replay me every day. I'm a top 10, top 10, top 10. Jumping out the gym, you can't keep me boxed in.
All right, and now I'd like to welcome in our next guest. Oh, I don't know, he's just the leading scorer of the Chicago Bulls, Mr. Zach LaVine. It's nice to see you, and so large in our studio.
Yeah, I see. Big screen. It's good to be back. It's good to be back.
Big time, big screen, and I want to put Zach's numbers up on the big screen. You are putting up all-star caliber bars here. 25 points a game, 5 boards, 5 assists a game, shooting 50% from the field, 40 from 3. We've seen you show out in the dunk contest in the past. I know you were trying to win 3-point and dunk contest in the same year, but you have never been in the actual all-star game. Would you like to participate, as it looks like they are going to go ahead and try to have that in Atlanta this year?
Yeah, of course. You always want to be recognized for individual accolades, but the big focus of mine this year was coming in and trying to help the team make the playoffs. So, whatever I've been trying to do has all been for wins.
Well, look, it's been a season where you guys have had some really fun wins. You've had some tough losses. And I just want to know what it is like to be on the court when it's inside 2 seconds and you see Damian Lillard get the ball and square up to shoot. I can't even say he squared up. He kind of like half turned, twisted to shoot. Are you like the rest of us at home? Like, oh, here he goes again.
If you watch my reaction, I'm very upset. But I mean, that's the type of player he is. You give him the ball. I've been on the side of hitting game winners on people, and you're on the side of losing some as well. And that's how great this league is, and that's how small the margin of error is. So it's tough, but we're still working. Dame's a all NBA, all MVP caliber player, and that's what happens sometimes. So we'll take it on the chin and get the next one.
Yeah, I just didn't know if it felt on the court the same way it does for the rest of us, where there's probably only a handful of guys in the league, but Dame is certainly one of him. He gets the ball in that last second situation, and it's like...
You just gotta hope he misses.
Which doesn't happen as often as maybe sometimes opponents would like. I do want to ask you about your new coach, Billy Donovan, because your game continues to evolve. You seem really comfortable this season playing for Billy. What has changed the most with the new coaching staff?
It's been really good. He's brought in a championship mentality, and us working every single day and personally challenging me. Not just to be on the court, but off the court as well. Being prepared, coming in every day with a certain mentality. And I feel like it's helped me, and it's going to continue to help the group as well. So it's been, very, very good for me.
Well, it's been a great fit. And in fact, in some ways, it's been so good and so good for your career. You know what happens, Zach, when you have when a guy putting up great numbers and the team is not a top contender. Teams that do feel they're contenders are like, maybe we could trade for Zach LaVine, say, and boost ourselves.
You hear it all the time in the NBA. As of right now, I'm so happy to be a Chicago Bull, and I think it's a good thing that your name is, always mentioned, because that means people are interested in you. But, my focus is trying to help this team make the playoffs, obviously, and I'm going to continue to do that and better myself and the team.
How does that actually work? Do you just start to get more texts from friends being like, hey, I heard about this, or is it buzz around the league? How do you hear more that your name is being mentioned like this?
I mean, you hear it all the time, but a lot of it, obviously, with agents and, your front office and things like that, you understand what's going on if you're inside of it, rather than the outside world always just taking guesses or dialing up the trade machine all the time at nighttime. So it's not as important as what everybody thinks.
You can just say the Knicks fan message boards. They've been active with your name. It's okay. Again, you're a wanted man. Look, this is a weird season for everyone, right? We were just talking in the break about the fact that you can't go anywhere, you can't do anything. You're supposed to get married. Harder to do that during a pandemic, so maybe put that off a little bit. What has it been like for you with this COVID season and all the protocols that the league has for you guys?
It's been a lot different. Obviously with no fans or we haven't played anywhere that had fans yet, but it's tough. You got to bring your own energy. Obviously the protocols, you're not able to go everywhere. You obviously want to be safe. And even with traveling and bringing family members in, it's tough because you don't want to jeopardize the team, or yourself. So it's been challenging, but, with patience, I think everybody can get through it.
Well, Zach, it's been really fun to watch you do this. I keep saying on the air, the way you have been able to deal with changing circumstances over the years, changing coaches, changing front offices, changing teammates, and have always been so focused on, okay, how can I adapt? We don't see that all the time with young players, and it's been your attitude throughout. And I just wanted to take a minute to say it directly to your face, since I say it behind your back on television all the time.
You're the best. You're the best.
I mean it. We don't see young players always looking to put that team goal above themselves all the time. So I've been very impressed. I will tell everyone All-Star voting is up. The first results came in today, but voting continues to be open. Do you have any stump speech before we leave, why people should vote for you?
Oh, man, look, I feel like I've been playing at All-Star level the last couple of years. And, for me, like you were just talking about, just playing the hand that you're dealt. I try to better myself and better the team. And, as long as we continue to go out there and play competitive basketball, and I think we're going to be in the hunt of it at the end of the year. And, I let everything lay where it may.
All right, we'll see where it lays. Zach, thank you so much for joining us. Best of luck with your season.
I always love talking to you. Thank you.
Thank you. And coming up, Luka Doncic and Steph Curry going head-to-head tonight. Do you trust the Mavs after they snapped their losing streak last night? We'll discuss that. First, though, time for our second distant replay of the day. Again.